Hello, today we're opening the exhibition Flashback, Return to Cluj, with photographic works by MIRON ZOWNIR here at the Art Museum in Cluj-Napoca. My name is Ingo Tegge, I represent the German Cultural Center, and I'm here today, by digital means, with the artist, veteran German photographer MIRON ZOWNIR, and with Olympia Bera, who is Vice Rector at University for Art and Design in Cluj-Napoca and who curated this exhibition. Due to the COVID situation, we will not be able to open this exhibition with a classic vernissage, but we hope that this digital format or this virtual vernissage will be interesting and inspiring for you as well. MIRON, the exhibition is titled Flashback, Return to Cluj. Can you tell us in which way this exhibition is a return to Cluj and to Romania for you?
Well, it is not a return to Cluj for me, which probably it was supposed to be, but at least the photos arrived safely in Cluj and we can exhibit. And well, I guess this is my indirect return to Cluj, and maybe we have another opportunity for a real return.
I certainly hope so. And this is a question for both of you. Maybe Miron, we continue, and then afterwards I will ask the same question to Olympia, because I'm not quite sure who of you was the person behind this idea. The exhibition combines two series of works. One called Romania Raw, which was created during a residency in 2018, and one from 1995 called Down and Out in Moscow. Why did you decide to combine these two series? What are the elements that combine these works and these photographs?
Well, this is a very good question. I don't know if I ever asked myself this question myself, but 95 was a crucial turning point in Russia. It was, I think, 5 or 6 years after the breaking down of the communist system. And it was probably the most miserable time in Russia since the Stalin time, but in a completely different way, because many people were really left alone without any means, and it was not really, it was a situation which was so outrageous, but it wasn't really that covered by the media, because the media was concentrated on the transition. It was about the connection between the West and the East, and there was a lot of hope and there was a lot of expectation, but nobody really was aware of how many people really suffered from the transition and couldn't adjust to it. Romania, many years later, was of course a completely different situation, but it was also about people living under very, very isolated and miserable situation in a country which basically adjusted to the new requirements of the West, of democracy, etc., etc. So, but for me, I mean, I could have even included my Ukrainian photos before and after the Maidan revolution, which was also a situation which was very unusual, which was actually, it was unpredictable, because what happened in Ukraine on Maidan wasn't in any way visible the few months before the time I have been in the Ukraine. So, but we'll be talking about two Eastern countries, former Soviet countries, and where, in my opinion, the status quo at the time I have been there was much, much more radical and existential than it was anywhere in Western Europe.
Thank you very much. And I would address the same question also to Olympia, being the curator of the exhibition, how this combination of pictures from the 90s, from Russia, from Moscow, and from 2018 from the Romania project came to be, and how it influenced the curation and the setup of the exhibition.
Well, I do not remember exactly how it was. I don't know exactly even if it was my idea or MIRON's, maybe it was both, because the things came out naturally. We decided to put face into face those two kinds of situations because we speak about two different realities, but it's in the same time, it's about the memory. This is why I trusted MIRON about having his feelings on confronting these two parts of the project Flashback, Return to Cluj. When he came in the residency 2 years ago, we had a very simple discussion about his expectations in Romania. He couldn't tell me in the first place. He saw Cluj, he saw that it's a very beautiful city, but he wanted to see more. And I saw him as an artist in action. I see him as an actionist, actually, even in the photography. It's like a performer. He had the delight to discover all the aspects in Cluj, in Paterid, in Baia Mare, in Bucharest, in Timișoara, all over these cities, traveling by car or by train. Some aspects I don't even know. It was his own adventure, but I respected this vision that maybe it's better to confront the two realities, even they are very apart from the point of view of the event, the historical event. I mean, in Moscow there was a fact, there were events. The situation was very violent itself, but in Romania everything was hidden behind the real course of the society, what is seen. He discovered what was not seen, but not as an event itself, like it was in the Moscow series. This is why we tried to make this contrast between two different situations, but two perspectives from his point of view, actually. And what we were interested about was the radical eye of his photography, that his photography reflects, that is guiding all over this exhibition.
I found it very interesting when you said, which is really true, the very obvious in Moscow and the hidden in Romania,
yes.
which is very interesting, which is really true. But both things, even the obvious in Moscow, people try to blend it out, to cover it, or not to acknowledge it. So in a way, it has a similar effect.
Yes, and there are similarities, but also a very visible contrast between the two civilities. Actually, it's a different year, it's different people, but some kind of same feelings.
Yeah, and
come out.
misery is ageless.
Yes, and in this time we can really talk about misery because we are very equal, all of us. We are equal in front of a virus.
Well, yeah, but we're still okay, but we're still not equal because the ones which really have nothing suffer more than we. We still, we can handle a situation even if it's uncomfortable. But we are still in a privileged situation if we're talking about us three.
Miron, you told me in the past that you worked on this Corona Berlin series where you traveled through Berlin looking at the places that were usually full of people also during the lockdown. And you told me that especially the poverty and the homeless were much more visible than usual. Do you think that this is one of the results also of the COVID pandemic, that misery comes into focus even more?
Well, in the first lockdown, it definitely was. The second lockdown is more half-hearted. You see a lot of people still around, a lot of cars, because there are only specific places which were really closed down, like restaurants or museums or galleries. But people, I would say 85% of the people still drive to work, come back. There are a couple of more people you see with masks, but not that many. And the prediction is that we're facing within the next 2 or 3 weeks a lot of problems, even with availability in Germany, even in Germany with beds and with people who can really help or have any medical background. So the situation might even get worse than it was in the spring, but in the outside, it doesn't have that desolation, that feeling, that emptiness, because as I said, it's are different measurements.
Speaking of desolation and emptiness, you also made some very drastic photos from, for example, Paterid, Roma community that is basically on the landfill on the outskirts of Cluj-Napoca. Can you tell us a bit about your experience there, of your work in Paterid?
Well, the absolutely first time I went there was with Livio, and we went with a taxi to the camp, and we were driving through and very slowly past all those different camps, and people were yelling insults at us, throwing some bottles or whatever, and we arrived almost at the end where that big garbage pile, this incredible big garbage pile, was fenced in and everything, and we asked for if it would be possible for me to make photos there, and everybody was very negative about it. And we already, and I thought, oh God, how should I ever make photos there? And we were driving back, and all of a sudden I saw a pile of, and I said to Livio, to the cab driver, okay, please stop here. I want to make some photos. And I stepped out, and at the moment I stepped out, those dogs attacked me. And it was because of Livio who opened the door of the cab so that I could escape. So I was thinking, I could never make photos there. It's impossible. Everything is so hostile and impossible to get there. And thanks to you and your connection to Alex, the kickbox vice champion, who used to live in this Roma community, he introduced me to one specific Roma camp, which was called Dallas. And when you entered it, there was a big sign, no photography allowed. But because of Alex, who introduced me to the Don of the camp, I could make pretty freely photos, even if some people still resented it, but others, especially the kids, were very open about it. But this was only the one time I was in the company of Alex. So when I went the second time to another camp, there was again first that hostile feeling and nobody wanted me to make photos. But I used Alex as a reference. And all of a sudden, people said, "Oh, Alex, yeah, Alex, okay." And it was kind of a second introduction, even just using his name. And there was a kind of a trust. And all of a sudden, people opened up to me. This was not always the case. And sometimes I really had to, I went to places where the hostility was really strong and I almost got attacked, or I had to verbally fight my way out. But it was an introduction which extremely helped me in paterid to get through all the different areas. Of course, in Baia Mare, it was a completely different approach because I didn't have that much help. But after I have been visible there a couple of times, people even also recognized me and showed me pretty much trust and made it possible for me to work there without really getting hurt. But I never could really enter that fenced-in garbage pile, a garbage disposal, because I think they were very afraid of negative. They just knew there were many things which were hygienically maybe not okay, and it was maybe didn't live up to the regulations. So there was from the organization which is behind that garbage disposal, they were very negative about anyone coming from the outside and documenting this unbelievable situation.
Many of your works are very, very stark, very intense. I would say they are neither what you would call poverty porn or somehow making fun of the individuals you portray, but also on the other side, they are not glorified or put into a beautiful light or something like that. They seem very real to me. Do you consider yourself a political artist? Do you have an agenda, or do you want just to show areas, for example, here of Cluj, that not everybody gets to see?
Well, the political context is indirectly. I do the photos not with that agenda to make a political statement. It's out of my subjective interest, and my subjective interest was from the beginning, even in the 70s, when I made photos in Berlin or later in New York or in any city or in any part of the world. I was always interested in things people or the media, the mainstream media, tried to ignore because it wasn't really that interesting, or in a political contest where the photographic quality didn't play any role. It was just information. So I think I approached those situations with my eye, with my instinct, with feelings, and also with an artistic quality which I didn't do it consciously, because it was the way I was seeing things which are not black and white. Even in misery, there are mysteria, there are areas which are maybe lighter than it looks from the first impact or the first impression. So my photos are not really predictable, and as you said, there are there's so many different layers. Of course, there's empathy, but there is a mysterious quality. There is an informative quality, but at the same time, there are so many shadows and layers which raise maybe even more questions than it gives answers. And but all this isn't a conscious package. It was just the way I approached my photography from the beginning. So people shouldn't think I went to Romania and I was looking specifically for the raw, the things which I wouldn't have done anywhere else, because no matter where I ever went, I mean, I could have shown Romania very beautiful. I could have shown so many different areas, which I could, Transylvania, the castles or whatever, but this was never my intention, and I'm sure a lot of people are doing this and pleasing expectations. So I'm not, I never please any expectations. I just show things which other people maybe don't see, don't dig deep enough in, or just avoid because it has no commercial or mainstream value.
Can you tell us a bit about how you brought MIRON to Romania and how this exhibition came to be? Why MIRON, and what makes him stand out as a photographer, as a veteran street and well, a photographer of social outcasts?
Oh, there are a lot of questions just in one. Well, there is a very beautiful story, in my opinion. I used to run a gallery in Oradea, Cluj, and Ulm. The gallery's name was Visual Contact. Now it's closed. But I had the opportunity to work with the community of artists. Actually, I wasn't. My qualification is not as a curator, but I became a curator because of the gallery and because of the events that I had to participate in. And in this gallery in 2016, we had an event where I was invited Claudio Pfeiffer, is an artist based in Berlin who runs a house publishing, but is not a common publishing house. He's doing artist books and zines and special limited editions and so on. And we had his contact from my friend and artist also, Liviu Bulea. We worked together for a long time. He met Claudio in Berlin, and we found very interesting the way that a publishing house managed by an artist comes with new ideas, alternative ideas about promoting artists behind the exhibition, behind the exhibition space, conventional space, and so on. And we found very interesting the way he works with the artist he's promoting. And this is how we were, I don't know, we were very focused in that exhibition also on MIRON's work and on the precious way of photo books to put in light his MIRON's works. In that time, he presented some art books, some catalogs, like New York City Reef. But then I also saw some other photos from Berlin Noir afterwards. And we were very excited about the personality of the artist that was made in page, actually, by Pogo Books. This is why we came up with the idea to invite MIRON, because we didn't find him as a conventional photographer. So Claudio helped us to get in touch with MIRON. So in 2018, he was invited in this residence at Visual Contact, and with the help of German Cultural Center, we had the opportunity to offer him this perspective and our help for him to make this project. I must confess that I didn't think about MIRON as a photographer. I was thinking about him as an artist. We used to work with some other photographers from the first time, but in his case, I was very curious about what is he going to do here in Romania, where he has a lot of possibilities. We speak about a country who is permanently in a transition state. There are a lot of angles, a lot of views that can be captured. And from another point of view, I am also an artist. I'm a painter. And in some kind of way, I saw this kind of atmosphere and this kind of artistic empathy that he shows when he takes a photography, a classical photography. And for me, it's some kind of a painting in black and white. And all this dramatic aspect involves a lot of participation from the part of the viewer. So this is what I've noticed about MIRON, and this is why I was curious to work with him. And I'm very glad that I made it. And here is the time to show, even in those difficult times. And I hope to have the opportunity to see him again physically in Cluj, and maybe to develop some other projects, even for the artists, not even for photographers or for students from the photography department, but for artists in general, because we do not speak about photography in a traditional way. Because behind the medium of photography, there is another kind of speech, it's another level of speech in his case.
Olympia, suggestion to come back to Romania and to approach another angle. Well, there are some areas in Romania, like at the Donnaby area, where very many pure Romanians live. For example, Constanța, that prostitution area. I'm sure there are some other areas in Romania which would be very, very interesting for me. But the problem would be if I would have stay in Cluj again, I'm very far away from that area at the Donnaby.
We'll find a way.
Yes. If I could stay somewhere closer over there, I'm ready for it again. I'm always ready for new projects and new things, and of course, I mean, I just only covered one part of Romania, and since I was in Cluj, you see, except of Bucharest, I never went actually eastern. I mean, Arad is west, Timisoara is west, all those areas are more west or north, so I would very much be interested in those other areas too. So talking about a new project. If you can come up with something, let me know. And hopefully, I mean, they predict now that Corona tragedy is dragging on until next summer, which is a long fucking time. But after that, maybe, who knows? I mean, there will be people will be even more poor, economic struggle will be even worse, frustration, misery will add up. It will turn around, specifically countries which are off balance a little bit. I mean, okay, Romania is pretty stable, but still it has a lot of areas which are really poor and which get poorer.
The appearance in Romania is very fragile. You saw that Cluj is very beautiful. It's Romania. It's an emergent country in this part of the world. But we'll see. Maybe we will find some opportunities. I'm saying not to. I don't want to predict anything.
No, of course not. No. Whenever you see a chance, who knows? Sometimes things come up, and that's it.
Yes.
The exhibition Flashback, Return to Cluj, with artworks by MIRON ZOWNIR, is visible from November 5 till November 30 in the Art Museum here in Cluj-Napoca. The exhibition was curated by Olympia Bera and coordinated by Alexandra Sârbu, and the organizers are the University for Art and Design, the Art Museum here of Cluj-Napoca, and us from the German Cultural Center. Please feel free to visit the exhibition also physically. Be aware that strict safety protocols have to be observed while visiting the museum, but I can assure you that this does not impact the power and the intensity of the works on display. Thank you very much for taking part in this virtual vernissage, and we hope to see you at the exhibition. Thank you.